All right, welcome back to the Unnamed Podcast, Cybersecurity Podcast. I almost screwed that up. I did screw it up, but I'm Chris Burns. We have Bob. We have Carl DePrado. We have Matt Weaver with us. Two of us are sick. You guys get to guess which two are sick. So we're lucky to be doing this today because, man, the petri dishes are real, guys. Their endpoint detection response systems are just not working properly this week. So, yeah, see.
They're running on low battery mode.
Yeah, there we go. Got plug in. No, you know what happens is they need a 60-watt charger, but they only have a 45-watt.
I think it's like a 20, or maybe one of those. Maybe one of those old 5-watters that you used to get in the iPhones.
Yeah,
you guys are charging.
Yeah, I should start with a nerd alert for the charging aspect of it.
Charging stuff.
All right, so this has been an interesting week. Interesting week from the fact that we're getting a lot of data leaks from companies that are coming out. Mr. Cooper, still dumb name. I don't care if they get mad at me about that. Still dumb name. Formerly Nation Star Mortgage. They finally admitted that they lost some place close to 14 million people's records during their breach in October.
Oops.
Yeah, so people couldn't pay their mortgages, and it gets better. It's not just the people that had mortgages. It's former people like me that had a mortgage sold to them, and if you applied to them. So even if you never got a mortgage from them, if you applied, all your information, you're going to get a letter at some point.
Well, that
why did they keep all that data?
What?
Why did they keep all that data?
They're required to keep data for all deals for up to 5 years.
Deals. I'm talking about applications.
No, applications for 5 years for review. Closed jackets, which means the deal's been closed for 7 years. So that goes. So it's not just them that when you send your application into all of these different facilities. You know, when you go to a car dealership, they might run your credit through 4 or 5 different agencies that you're not even aware of.
Yeah.
And they all have your information, and they have to keep that information.
So here's the rub on this, though, to Bob's point, is I haven't had a mortgage with them in almost a decade. My stuff shouldn't have been there.
Yeah.
There's no reason for that to be exposed.
Well, that's the FTC safeguard rule now that went into effect was 2 years after you no longer have a relationship, you have to destroy that information.
Or if there's a legal reason to keep
it. But that legal reason, attorneys can only the attorneys, which I think have the longest reason for retention. Though I'm sorry, there are some things that I have some M&A clients that go 10 years. So
tax code too. Tax
code, certain depending. But in most cases it's 7 years. You have to destroy that at that point if you no longer have a relationship. The relationship's gone.
I think the weird thing about this whole situation too is they're not saying how they got breached. They're not saying how it happened. Now, the SEC disclosure rules obviously went in Monday, so the 18th, but this predates that, so they don't really, I guess, have to. But after that, so we start off the week with that, and then all of a sudden, people start getting letters from Comcast.
Yeah.
And Comcast is like, hey, yeah, so you know that Citrix vulnerability that everybody's talked about, Citrix Bleed?
Okay.
We just didn't patch it for 13 days. Oh, you didn't. So you made that decision, huh? And now that's 37 million people. So I got that letter. I like the emails from that. And then you get to read it. I made a video on my stuff about it earlier, but
just to reiterate though, Chris, this is something you've been talking about for 2 months now, I think.
Yeah.
Citrix Bleed? Oh yeah.
There's been a patch available.
Well, there's
that could happen, and here's Comcast. 30 million clients or whatever, not doing it.
The rich thing about the whole situation, and the thing that really just like irks you, is they fully admit to it. Which, you know, hey, good for you to fully admit that you just didn't do something. But that doesn't change the fact that now you need to pay for identity theft for people, identity theft protection. But there's steps in their disclosure on what they're going to do from now on. I'm going to read this. This is fun. You guys tell me what you think about this. In today's environment, large companies face cybersecurity threats constantly. True. Anybody disagree with that?
No.
Small businesses do too. Everybody does. Like, I feel like we should
Senior citizens, children.
Oh,
yeah. The only one maybe your dog doesn't have to worry about being a victim of a cyber crime.
My dog?
Your dog probably doesn't have to worry about it.
I hope not.
I
That
hope
cat
so.
might. He's got that electronic GPS collar on him, so I don't know. That's a whole different.
I'm sorry if somebody stalks your cat. I'm not sure what the legal boundaries are there, but
Me
maybe.
either. Carry on.
First of all, it's only a cat. So-
So
Or
then they
pat my
continue
cat.
on. Oh, pet your cat. Then they continue on with, we have a robust security program in place which helps us to discover criminal activity such as this one and quickly mitigate it. Interesting. Okay, so quickly mitigate it, right? In their disclosure, they
Yes,
admit
it
that
is.
on October 10th, Citrix released the patch, but then when they released the initial mitigation guidance on the 23rd of October, that's when they finally did it. This happened between October 16th and October 19th that they were breached. They didn't discover this until October 25th. So, let's see here. They say that they can do this quickly, mitigate it.
It was
Doesn't
less than a month.
seem to line up, but okay. Customers trust us to protect their information. True, right? And the company takes this responsibility seriously. Really? Doesn't sound like it. We remain committed to investing in technology, protocols, and experts dedicated to helping protect our customers. So, throughout all this, they're using IDX, which ironically is who MGM used for their breach as well. So I can't stack these, unfortunately, so I wish I could. What do we think, outside of my opinion, what do you think? Let's start with Matt. What do you think about that? Like you're actually a customer too, right? Of Xfinity?
Oh yeah. I mean, everyone has been at one point. It's kind of hard to avoid them, at least in the Northeast.
So if you don't patch something for 13 days and you get breached, I mean, how much responsibility do you think you should be taking?
I think it's 100% their responsibility. I don't think the size of the company is an excuse. I understand big size companies are not quite as nimble, but they're also a bigger target. When something is internet facing and there is a known issue with it and you have all your clients' data on there, you should probably lock that door. There's not an excuse. You can't really make an excuse for them. And the unfortunate thing is they're so big, this is barely going to touch them. And it's really their clients that are going to suffer because it's their information that's out there now.
And for the Xfinity, the way that they're probably looking at it is the risk to their company, to their brand, to their stock overall, since it's a captive market, people aren't going to switch cable providers quickly or easily. They're like, what's the reason to invest or to protect that data? It doesn't make they're not incentivized to do the right thing, and they're not de-incentivized to do the right thing. So so the right thing doesn't really show up, and that's why we see sometimes in a lot of situations where this comes up, and we will probably see more into 2024.
But here's the thing, Comcast is a big company. It's an enterprise class company, and they should have teams in place already and policies to do this. This isn't just some small CPA or accounting firm that has cousin Joe taking care of IT. And I know Chris and Matt have both been at larger companies where this should have been taking place.
Absolutely.
Oh, yes.
Speaking from a former employer that had this situation, the rumor there was they didn't know the password to the NetScaler to even get into patch it. So enjoy that chunk of knowledge.
Wow.
That's allegedly that's what the cause was why they didn't patch it. Yeah. I think to Carl's point, what can we do to incentivize these companies to do more? And we kind of talked about this beforehand, without completely destroying the companies. For example, GDPR for these types of breaches can fine 4% of global revenue, right? Could we do that here?
Not in our current environment. I mean, because I think you brought up pre-show is that there would be retaliation, and the retaliation would be the states that proceeded to accept that or fine or whatever. All of a sudden, you'd find the corporate headquarters move out of those states. You'd find that because they'd want to send a message loud and clear.
So it'd have to be a federal level thing. So
even
it didn't matter where they moved.
Even at the federal. Well, I'm talking about senators. I'm talking about congressman. Oh, which congressman voted? Which committee? We are run. We have the industry, and we have government and industry are not really separated. And sometimes we have some people we have some individuals who can basically impart a lot of force in the political will of our country.
So reading between the lines, you're saying that lobbying is going to stop that.
Lobbying and jobs. I mean, we are, that's the other part of it. We don't have protectionism put in place, to make sure, large corporations can't do mass layoffs or mass relocations at a drop of a hat. I mean, look at it. I'm in New York. Amazon tried to come into New York. If they had pulled in, we were ready to, drop everything for them, give them sweetheart deals. And five other cities or 10 other cities throughout the country, all begging to get them in for the jobs. At the end of the day, they split the deal, and they were able to get all these cities to work millions and millions of dollars to make up these proposals. So taking off 4%, it's counterproductive even to the state's interests or to the federal government's interests. Senators, it's not the federal government, it's the senators from the states that go into the Fed, or the Congress people that go into that.
So let's back this up a second. You remember when the Uber CISO got arrested, right? Mm-hmm. Because they paid the breach and stuff like that. Well, he just spoke over in Europe on this, and he said that the CEO and counsel in the company knew exactly what was going on.
Sure.
But they held the CISO and not the CEO responsible. So, and we talked about the
job in America.
Yeah, well, how are you going to get people, right? My thought is very unpopular. Pre-show was to actually take these stock options from public companies, from executives in these situations, and distribute them to the victims.
Well, the FTC has a small, minuscule way of doing that in the safeguard rule, where they can and fine management teams directly, but it's like $10,000 per incident, and it's still a question of like what incident. Now, if it was $10,000 per record, you start to go, all right, well, you just did 30 million records. That would clean up. That would put a little zip and zing into them wanting to make sure that things were done correctly. That might be an overcorrection, but probably would be. But at the same point, the intent was there. I don't think it has a lot of. For smaller companies, it is definitely, look, you're a company that's running, $1 million, $2 million, $10,000 hurts. When you get that bill, regardless.
$10,000 also caps at 100.
Yeah, safeguard caps at 100, but that's per incident. But this is separate from that, Bob. You also have a $46,000 per day as long as that incident is open.
Well, and then I think GDPR caps at I think it's 20 million euro.
Mm-hmm. So Elon Musk.
No, actually, they go 20 million euro or 4%, whichever's higher. So they can actually go higher.
Okay, well that could hurt an Elon.
Yeah, that could hurt a lot of people. Comcast.
Hey, look, 4% is significant for most people.
And not everybody falls under FTC. So really, I think and this is the takeaway. We can talk about this. It's broken.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's broken.
I think that we can all agree on that. No matter how you look at it, it's broken.
And data privacy laws are really California and New York have the two strictest. Other states are trying to implement them, but it's still broken. So we need a federal level data privacy protection law, right? With teeth. Does that sound fair? With teeth that can actually change the minds of people. I don't want to put anybody in jail. I think putting people in jail is stupid in this case.
Well, I agree. There needs to be some incentive to do the right thing for the customer.
Now, taking their yacht, I'm okay with. Taking their because
borrowing their yacht.
Yeah, but because look, we get somebody that's making. Let's say you're just a middle class person, and you get your information stolen, and somebody takes out loans in your name and just wrecks your credit. I don't care if you have identity protection. That's catastrophic to your life.
Absolutely devastating.
And these companies that are complaining about this, like Mr. Cooper complained that their cost was going to go from $5 million, $5 to $10 million to $25 million because they had to pay for ID protection for people. That was a complaint. Oh, I'm sorry. $15 million in the grand scheme of thing in a large mortgage company is nothing compared to like the devastation you can have on the person and the family. So until we kind of get people to understand that, it's going to be tough to go. But on that note, if you are a victim of identity theft, go to identitytheft.gov. Yeah. And you can get started there, and they'll help you kind of work out a plan. It's not perfect, but it does give you a plan of action to try to help, recover.
There's at least guidance and some processes to follow.
And it's run by, go ahead. I'm sorry, Chris.
I was going to say it's run by the Federal Trade Commission, so it's run by the federal government. They do give you guidance on how to do this. It's not perfect. Obviously, if you're part of this breach, go out and sign up for whatever identity protection they give you.
And then also do a credit freeze. So you can go through. It's free to do. You do that through all three major reporting, credit reporting. That's Experian, Equifax, and what was the last one?
TransUnion.
TransUnion. You go to all three of them. You log in. They give you a free account. You put a credit freeze. What that means is nobody can run credit against you unless you unlock it for a period of time. So when you go for a car loan, you go for a new credit card, you need a second mortgage first time you're a home buyer, that you go ahead and you unlock it for a period of time, a week or so, whatever you need, and then you close it. And that keeps it in that so that nobody can run that credit there.
Depending on the agency, I think one or two of them will even accept a cell phone number to call and verify. So when I had my identity
improved, that's recently.
Yeah. They actually, when I opened up a line of credit with Firestone recently, forgot my credit was locked. I mean, thankfully nothing bad has happened for a while. My phone rang while I was standing there filling out the application. I was like, oh yeah, that's right. And they went through some questions I forgot I set up, but only I knew the answers to. So it's not as inconvenient as it sounds, and it's kept anyone from buying another $30,000 or so of jewelry in my name, like happened 4 years ago. So that was lovely.
Well, now I know I just need to SimJack Matt. I'm good.
So let's talk about part two. Speaking about voices and what can be and what technology is out there and how much we rely on the phone and stuff. I was telling these guys when I have nothing better to do, I love to just go to symposiums held by the FBI, and this time it was the New York City Police Department. They had New York Shield, and it was a drone, which really doesn't talk about to this audience. But then what it also was about was artificial intelligence and what we're starting to see out there. And I mean, politically, it's very upsetting because both sides you got countries outside of the U.S. that are looking at large disinformation campaigns and what they can do with this technology and even what they've been doing so far. To affect even the two current land wars that we're having, between the Ukraine and Russia and between Israel and Hamas. There've already been fake pictures and fake bombing things that have shown up, and even bodies that were put in there, children, and they were all developed artificially to create, emotional responses and to stir up people. And one thing that they did currently, they're trying to do some more technology to start creating more digital watermarks for AI as far as these pictures are concerned. But the one thing that they said is they call it a WA, W standing for words. Look at the words. If there's any words in the picture, they tend to not be good. For some reason, AI right now can't put the words in correctly. And if anybody's ever played with Midjourney or any of the other things, and you try to create text for social media or whatever, you'll find out that that's always blown up and goes south on you. And the other thing you want to look at is appendages and the joints that are there. You want to make sure, fingers, if all of a sudden they got a sixth finger in there and stuff like that. That's the other thing you're looking at, shadows, lighting. That's there. I mean, as the technology gets better, but the other part that they had is they've actually started seeing artificial intelligence being used in voices to the point where we've actually seen where bomb threats have been called in for this. I don't want to give any ideas, but I mean, that's the most negative. But you can look at a call that's coming in, and Matt, to your thing of like a phone call coming in and verifying. And I don't think the technology is even close yet. I mean, that's the other part. Thankfully, when you hear these voices, they don't sound completely right. And what they, as far as that's concerned. But this is one of the things that we have to be aware of, is that this is coming out, and I'd hate to see a senior on a call being told that this is the police, and my gosh, we have your son, or we have you something. Please send us, XYZ.
Yeah.
To your point, obviously, deepfake videos is the scariest part of it, because for the longest time, humans have trusted our eyes. So if we see a video, it's completely different.
Seeing is believing.
Yes, hearing is one thing, but seeing it is completely different.
It's interesting. There's a channel I subscribe to on YouTube which brings up the latest artificial movie making techniques that are coming out, and how they're using AI to create right now short films. But what's going on as far as creating scenes and creating pictures in there and creating effects, taking a legitimate photo or a legitimate movie and then adding, special effects that normally would have cost you $50,000, $60,000, and being able to put that into a scene in within seconds and rendering it out and, shadowing a little bit. And if you know what you're doing, it still takes some skill. It's not like you can just simply set it and forget it. But it is an issue. It's a very good issue if you cut it right. If people saw it in the right shadows and the right spacing, or the lack of clarity, it actually makes. Sometimes when a picture's too sharp, you can see the errors. But if you fuzz it out and you make it a little grainier, it's good to hide
the story.
Well,
really.
You simulate like surveillance cameras.
Yeah.
Right? Good example. Surveillance cameras aren't always perfect. A lot of times the lighting's off a little bit. But like, the challenge you're going to have with this is you're going to need AI technology to discover it, because again, we can talk about politics, but we have an election coming up in 11 months, and that's going to be a big deal leading up to that.
Yeah, you'll see some issues,
and it's getting
social media, and even
it's getting a lot cheaper to do. It's getting a lot easier to do. It's getting a lot faster to do.
And these are the things you got to be aware of when you're seeing sources come out. Are they really coming from legitimate places? What
about just plain old extortion?
Well,
let's say they go look at your Instagram and they pull your likeness, and all of a sudden they send you a video of you doing something horrendous, and they say, send me $5,000 or I'm going to leak this on the internet.
Unfortunately, that's been coming to Hollywood actresses for the last 4 or 5 years in the world of deep fakes and pornography. So that's something that hasn't gone away. Yeah,
I'm trying not to crack a joke, Carl, on that one. I'm going to leave that one alone.
It's not as meant as a joke. I can't imagine.
No, I know
the horror of somebody going in there and being exploited that way. That's not a fun thing. It's not. There's nothing.
Oh no, not that that's fun, but the fact that all about that.
But we're also getting school kids doing this to people in the school.
Yep.
AI, people are doing it as jokes. Yeah. You see this even in teasing videos that are using as humor. They'll put a face on somebody else and make it like a joke, and then all of a sudden the difference is now that was done to be intentionally seen as a joke, where unfortunately the technology is that good.
But that also opens up the opportunity for digital bullying to be taken to an entirely new level. Tech's hard enough with kids these days. This is just going to add a new dynamic.
And layman people aren't going to know this technology exists. So how do you educate this many people on this technology and why it's so important that you can't trust your eyes and that you need other sources of validation, or your ears? Well, that's going to be the biggest challenge. It's like, we can have, because remember, what about court cases? This is going to introduce some radical changes that need to happen. So I think that's probably a good place to end. I had a story, but we'll talk about that next week.
I'm going to finish one point real quick.
Sure.
If anybody had seen Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, there was a scene at the end where Leonardo DiCaprio, throughout the movie, he's actually looking like he looks like he is in The Great Escape, auditioning for The Great Escape as who's the guy who Steve McQueen. He's actually they replaced him in the movie Steve McQueen with Leonardo DiCaprio, and they show a clip. Well, that same clip can be done in Photoshop, and they actually showed how. And if you want to Google that, just saying that the technology is that good right now, currently with off-the-shelf products. So from here, we can at least say, yeah, you really do need to be skeptical. But forensics can tell whether something's good or not. You know, there are people who can go through there, and there are spots for the errors there. But for the untrained eye, it can fool you, just like what we do when we see a phishing email or a phishing attempt.
So, what have we learned today? Your identity's probably been stolen, and this video doesn't exist because it's AI.
Basically, proceed with caution.
Proceed with caution. Yeah, and if you've been a victim, again, go to identitytheft.gov. That's all right. Go to identitytheft.gov, work on that, talk to an expert. We hope nobody goes through this, but unfortunately, some people will. So, have a Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah,
yeah,
Kwanzaa, whatever other holidays you celebrate. Family from our families, especially Chris's family, to all of you.
We're not going to talk about my family. I'm going to leave on that one. Everyone. So next week we'll have some fun for the just before the new year. So until then, stay safe, guys.
Later, guys.